Hello, everyone. I'm so excited about this episode of Decoded because I have John Kao with me. John, it's such a pleasure to be talking with you. You are so multifaceted. You are a psychiatrist by training. You are a Harvard Business School professor. You are an author of Jammin', which I got to read. You are a leadership guru. And then to top it off, a jazz musician. What is going on there? Why so many things in your life, and how do they connect, if at all?
You know, it's all about exercising your curiosity and being willing to give yourself permission to explore things. And everything that you mentioned kind of ties together in the sense that I've created my own curriculum for trying to understand deeply how creativity and by extension, innovation and the ability to make change through having a different mindset and a different perception of opportunity, how that can happen, which I'm imagining our proficiencies would all like to have more of these days, especially given how disrupted and turbulent things are. So it's personal, you know, it's some people, you know, there's hedgehogs and there are foxes. And I'm not saying that focus is bad. Yeah. But on the other hand, whenever anybody said, you know, why don't you just focus on one thing? It made me restless to go on to the next.
Yeah. Well, I feel so affirmed when you speak like that because I have so many different sides to myself and I think they're all important. And people ask me, why are you doing that? Or why are you doing this? And partly because I just need to. You know, to your point, I'm just curious. And if I don't, I won't be myself. But also because I truly believe that all these different sides help me be more me and help me solve the challenges no matter which world I'm playing in at that point in time.
Exactly. So it's an ability to have conversations with yourself. I mean, not that we have multiple personalities, but that we can have a dialogue between disciplines that appear very disparate. But right. When we pull them together, we're like arbitrageurs in the financial field where they bring goods from places where they're abundant to places where they're scarce. And by making a bridge, they create value. So right. By hooking these different elements of our repertoire together, I guess you could say, we have the possibility of creating some value.
Yeah. So, you know, I feel like so many leadership gurus like to talk about having a personal brand or what's your brand and very much staying in one swim lane. And you're saying, no, that actually, that may be more limiting than benefiting you.
I'm saying no and no again, because I think that so much of our management and leadership playbook is distressingly out of keeping with the realities of the time. And the fact that we are in this highly disrupted period of history, including the pandemic, is a big stress test as to the effectiveness of leadership. And, you know, this idea that somehow it's all about one thing, you know, brand amplification is really about trying to appear in a more attractive and compelling way so people will fall into line with your ideas or be motivated by you. That's, you know, at best a tiny little fraction of what leadership is about. And this notion that we could go down a checklist of attributes, and if we just enact those attributes, we'll be great leaders. I think that went out with the 19th century when people were riding on white horses in front of the troops. And, you know, the nature of warfare was so different that, you know, you had a good chance of staying on your horse as opposed to getting shot off.
Right.
But now I believe that you need a portfolio of proficiencies. You need to be good at a variety of things in almost a cognitive and intellectual, what's going on inside your head sense, so that you can have a way of thinking about things in a complex and nuanced way that fits with the complex and nuanced times that we live in.
Right, because if you just have one lane that you're in, and if you only tap one type of intelligence, you're only going to be able to solve for so much. And in a world, especially the world we're in right now, which requires so much ability and overnight, requires this sense of innovation and adaptability. If you don't have different sides, if you don't have different intelligences that you can really harness, you're going to be stuck. And I've written a lot about that.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a great lead in. So a lot of what I've been doing has been integrating the strands of my thinking and the clinical experience I've had working with different, from the C-suite to the front lines to startup entrepreneurs and back. And I've codified this into a framework and a toolbox that I call the 6 intelligences. So 6 intelligences means, first of all, that you have to have this portfolio. And the intelligences include, and I'll just quickly go through them, the ability to understand deeply your context. So the truth of where you are in order to understand the possibility of where you're going and how to make that bridge. And, in military communities, they call this situational awareness. Fighter pilots don't read a procedure manual before they start their dogfights, because if they do, they won't be alive very much longer. And there are mortal stakes for a lot of the things we talk about, whether it's the life and death of companies or our well-being in society. So context intelligence. We need a kind of moral point of view, because these days it's not enough to be profitable. We have to live by principle and by our values and our sense of purpose, our North Star. Right. We need to boost our EQ so we can be better at our relationships and leveraging talent. We need to be better at innovation, because innovation is pretty long in the tooth also and needs to be reinvented and revitalized for this era that we're in. We need technological intelligence, because all of us are affected by this tidal wave of new technologies. And if we are not literate in terms of understanding how it changes our context, we're going to be swept away. We'll be dependent as opposed to independent variables, so to speak. And then finally, we need transformational intelligence, because we need to pull it all together into a theory of change that leads into an action plan, whether it's for us as individuals or for the teams we lead or the organizations that we're a part of, or even for our societies at large. And these 6 intelligences are so important, because I don't just think we're in a period of disruption. I think we're in a period of discontinuity, where all of a sudden, we've been proceeding with a known playbook and a map, and it ends. And beyond that, there's just a white void. And then somewhere on the distant horizon, there's this desired future. And so inventing the bridge to the future that we want requires wholesale reimagining, and it requires deploying, I believe, these 6 intelligences.
So you've given us this blueprint, which is very comprehensive, these 6 intelligences. But I listen to it and I think, do I even have one of those intelligences? How do we allow people to feel like they can definitely tap them, that they do have them somewhere? I mean, I'm sure some of them have to be honed a little bit more than others, but how do we ensure that everyone feels like they can leverage them? They do have them somewhere.
Sure. Well, this is not a heady Harvard Business Review framework that's just for CEOs. If you look at a kid who's in college who's trying to figure out a pathway in this really disrupted job market, you have to have a sense of where you are. What is your context, right? What's your here, so that you can go to your desired future? You have to have, these days, you have to have a sense of mission, right? In order to put up with all of the uncertainty involved with climbing the ladder. You need EQ to make your way through all of the hurdles and gateways that you need to navigate. You need to have this belief that you are creative and you have the ability to harvest the fruits of your creativity. And everyone is creative. Not everybody is Steve Jobs or Mozart, but everyone is creative. But most of us are not necessarily confident about that, or feel like we have the knowledge to put our hands on the dials and the levers to make creativity happen. We need to understand technology, because it's affecting everything around us, and we need to have a theory of change, because otherwise, we as individuals, that putative college student I just mentioned is going to be reacting as opposed to actually pursuing, leaning back as opposed to leaning forward. But, the same intelligences could apply to a leader of an organization or a frontline manager or a citizen even. You think about what we need as citizens to really exercise our civic duties. They have a lot to do with the 6 intelligences as well.
Yeah, this is really heartening to hear. I mean, number one, because I speak about creativity, and that is my biggest charge to everyone, which is you're all creative. you all have that ability, that this is what separates you from other species. It's your ability to come up with solutions. But also what heartens me so much with what you're saying is that actually this is a call to everybody to be a leader. So if we all have these 6 intelligences, we should all take charge of our destiny. We should all contribute to, whether it is your organization or community, because you can be a leader. And that's what's exciting, right?
It is exciting. I mean, it excites me, and I believe it's excited the people I've shared the framework with. I've started to share it with people from all walks of life worldwide in order to get feedback, and the response has been really positive because it seems to fit with their experience of what's going on in the world, and with the need for everyone, in a sense, to be the hero of their own story, to be courageous in terms of getting to that far horizon, recognizing that there are real discontinuities and real gaps in terms of how to get there. And so this becomes the survival pack for figuring it out for each one of us individually and, you know, on behalf of the others that we may be working with.
I love that, the survival pack. Is that going to be your next book?
I'm working on a book right now on the 6 intelligences. Ooh. Funny you should mention that.
I think that should be the title. You can also, you know, dedicate it to me.
You mean the survival pack could be find its way into the title? A survival pack for an age of discontinuity.
Totally. Right. And, you know, to me, it's more than just a survival pack. I mean, yes, we need to survive. And I think so many of us feel like we're in survival mode. But at the same time, it also feels like, you know, if we have the luxury of feeling this way, and I think some of us do, that this is actually opportunity pack, right? It's scary, but it's also generative, to use your words. Like it makes you need to come up with ideas and make you feel like you can, because it is open season. It is a little bit Wild West. That could scare some people, but it shouldn't. And especially when you have the toolkit, when you've got the opportunity pack or survival pack meets opportunity pack, it's exciting. And I'm not saying that, I'm not trying to belittle the challenges that we're all going through, because we're all in some big or small way going through challenges, but isn't this kind of what happens with human beings, that it's these challenges that allow us to rise above and come up with unique, powerful, and hopefully really meaningful and long-standing solutions.
So this is where my psychiatric training comes in a bit handy, because there are ways that you can convert the anxiety and the stress that we're all experiencing to various degrees, and convert that into energy for leaning forward and being proactive and calling upon our desire for clarity and for agility and progress. And as you say, there have never been, I mean, in my opinion, there have never been more opportunities than there are today. You know, when the times are disrupted, the opportunities just get bigger. But the question is, given how we feel, are we going to take that as a cue to lean back and curl up into a fetal ball, or give up, or default to old legacy thinking because it's comforting and, you know, roll things back to the 1950s? Or are we going to be taking that same emotional charge and using it as energy to embrace the future? And that's where a lot of, I could almost say, tricks around cognitive repositioning and leadership communications and culture building actually become quite meaningful, because they're purposeful. They become specific tools for almost engineering a positive response that is necessary in this time.
So going full circle, going back to the beginning of our conversation, you have definitely tapped all of your different sides to come up with this amazing toolkit. And that's, you know, what I love about having a toolkit, and this probably speaks to what you were just saying around understanding the psyche of human beings, that it's one thing to say it's a big opportunity, but that leaves you making you feel worse, because are you taking advantage of the opportunity? Oh no, I'm not. But you have the process, you have the means, you have the tools. So we know we can truly take advantage and really, really lean into the opportunity. So John, I'm so excited about your book. And I look forward to reading it, and I hope the rest of you do too. And I can't wait for you to join another episode of Decoded.
It'll be my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Well, see you next time. Bye, all.